You can watch it on YouTube. We got manager.
Looks like she's on.
Call to order the October 18th Planning Commission meeting. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Janice, will you take attendance, please?
Mr. Jones,
Present.
Ms. Madrick,
Present.
we'll come back. Mr. Lake,
Present.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Present.
Mr. Franz, Mrs. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Fedor,
Present.
Ms. Madrick,
Present.
We have a quorum. In our packets was the minutes from the September 20th meeting. Is there any changes, corrections, or?
Josh, I found something. The lady who lives across from the Goodwin property is Mrs. Yeedy, Y-E-D-E.
YDE.
And it comes out on here as Eads. And I thought that's probably important that the right name should be there.
Margaret Eady.
Yep,
Is that the only changes we see?
that's the only thing now I didn't write down all the pages, but every place that was, it came out that way.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes with the changes of?
I move we accept minutes as corrected.
Second. Do we need to do a roll call on this one, Janice?
Yes, because
Yeah. Janice, will you take roll?
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
On to continued business. We'll start with 2021-39-CA. The town of Appaloosa, towns at Appaloosa, 10901 East, 300 South, and 3201 South, US 421. Petition for commitment amendments to modify commitments associated with the Planning Commission approval of docket 2020-04-CA recorded in the office of the recorder of Boone County, Indiana, in instrument number 202013511. Do all three of these at the same time. 2021-37-PP, the towns at Appaloosa, 10901 East, 300 South, and 3201 South, US 421. Petition for primary plat approval to allow 125 lots, 4 being of common areas in the rural GB general business and rural PB professional business zoning district. And 2021-38-DP, the towns of Appaloosa, 10901 East, 300 South, and 3201 South, US 421. Petition for development plan approval to provide for the development of 18 plus or minus acre site to accommodate 121 townhomes and 4 common areas in the rural GB general business and rural PB professional business zoning district. Is the petitioner present?
Good evening. Yes, petitioners present. My name is Kyle Resiteritz. I'm an attorney with Denton's, Bingham Greenbaum, 10 West Market Street in Indianapolis. Before I begin, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the commission's time this evening. Here on behalf of my client Pulte Homes, also standing in virtually for my colleague Matt Price, who had a previously scheduled hearing in conflict this evening. By way of update, we have met with the Plan Commission subcommittee that was formed on September 20th for review of these 3 petitions. We've met with that subcommittee twice, had 2 very highly productive meetings. We certainly appreciate the subcommittee's attention to both of these petitions. However, we do require additional time to revise the plans in connection with those meetings, allowing for further review and then eventual resubmission to the full Plan Commission for their consideration. So in connection with all 3 of these petitions, and in light of what I just presented, we'd ask for a continuance until the November 15th meeting. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Janice, will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Motion passed. We'll see you next month.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see, next one, 2021-53-MP, A Bristol, 415 North, 1100 East. Petition for minor plat approval to establish 3-lot residential subdivision in the rural AG agricultural zoning district. It's a petitioner present.
Mr. President, for the record, Mike Andreoli, 1393 West Oak Street. I represent Adam Bristol, and it was necessary for us at the October Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to go ahead and ask for a continuance. At that request, we have a petition on file in order to go ahead and do a special exception for homes in the ag area. In addition, we had requested a couple of variances. One was a 3-to-1 lot ratio, and working with staff and understanding staff's position, we were able to fortunately be in a position to eliminate that variance request by changing some of the lot lines and making sure that the 3-to-1 was not being violated, and therefore our obligation is to try to reduce requests for variances. If we can't, we found a way to do that. But we continued that, and so essentially what we want to do is have the special exceptions in the Board of Zoning Appeals matter first before you actually go and have your plat. So that's the reason we're asking that this be continued to the November meeting. We'll have our meeting in November at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then we will come to you for plat approval. Thank you.
Is there a motion to move this to the November, or continue this to the November 15th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Janice, will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll see you next month. Let's see. 2021-29-CPA, Town of Zionsville Draft Airport Strategic Land Use Plan. Petition to consider amendments to the Town of Zionsville's comprehensive plan in order to consider incorporation of the airport strategic land use plan. Wayne, are you?
Yes, I can speak to that. And thank you. As your agenda indicates, the petitioner, which is the Town of Zionsville, as well as the airport, intends to request a continuance this evening. This request would be to your November meeting. Certainly, we recognize that your agenda in November could be a bit lengthy. With that in mind, we certainly open to November 16th, a Tuesday, having a special meeting for the Plan Commission. This primarily revolves around the fact that the consulting team wasn't available to be here this evening. And then over the next 30 days, the staff will be working with the consulting team, as well as we'll also check in with Plan Commission members, specifically not to violate quorum, of course, related to trying to wrap this up so we can come to the final, what staff would hope would be your November meeting for final action with whatever direction the group chooses.
So is there a motion to move 2021-29 CPA to a special meeting on November 16th
So moved.
at 7 o'clock? I'm sorry.
In this room.
In this room.
Second,
Janice, will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll look at that one on the 16th. 2021-55-DPA, Hub Phase 1, 4175 South Indianapolis Road, petition for development plan amendments to allow for an extension of the time allowed for 3 temporary trailers to exist on site in the
I-1.
I-1 Rural Industrial Zoning District. Is petitioner present?
Yes, I'm the petitioner Megan Hall with Pepper Construction, 1850 West 15th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. So we are asking for a continuation as we prepared and completed the docket packet itself for tonight's meeting, but did not meet the 10-day notice requirement for the adjourner. So we were publishing to 2 local newspapers. We were in the understanding that we would achieve the 10-day and 9-day based on the 2, but upon final publication, it was 9-day for both. So we went ahead and published for the November 15th Plan Commission meeting.
Is there a motion to move docket 2021-55-DPA to the November 15th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, would you take roll, please?
Thank you.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll see you next month. 2021-23-PPA, the parks, 410 South 4th Street and 500 South Main Street. Petition for a primary plat amendment to provide a central water system supporting a separate fire protection main as per section 193056 of the subdivision control ordinance in the urban PUD plan unit development. Is the petitioner present?
Yes. This is Greg Dempsey, Innovative Engineering, 3961 Perry Boulevard, Whitestown, Indiana. Kind of standing in for Matt this evening. As mentioned before, he had another commitment. But just everyone should have received a letter from Paul McCoy, who I believe is there with you all this evening, requesting the continuance. In that, he mentions that, per the recommendation at the previous meeting, we did go back and meet with staff on September 28th to try and work through the remainder of their comments. One of the comments was to obtain a letter from the pump manufacturer that it would be appropriate to install that pump in the underground wet well. We did get a response back from the representative that said that would be okay. We've been trying to also get a letter from the manufacturer themselves. We've not received that letter yet. Since then, the development team has got together and made the decision to go ahead and move that pump above grade, put it in an enclosure. I believe this would be a lot more favorable to staff and would help really kind of move this along toward approval on their end. So tonight we're requesting a continuance to the November meeting, just to allow time to make those plan revisions, get them submitted to staff, and allow them time to review them.
Is there is there a motion to continue this to the November 15th meeting?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Janice, would you take roll, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll see you on November 15th.
Thank you.
And on to continued business. Docket 2021-41-D, Lennar Homes of Indiana LLC, 2301 South, US 421, 10801 and 11201 East 200 South. Petition for zoning map change to rezone 119 plus or minus acres from the rural AG agricultural zoning district, a rural MRO Michigan Road overlay zoning district to a rural R3 single family and two family residential zoning district and MRO Michigan Road overlay zoning district. Is a petitioner present?
We are. Good evening. For the record, my name is Rick Lawrence. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger with offices at 550 Congressional Boulevard, Carmel, Indiana. As an initial matter, we would ask for a waiver of your rules. We did publish, or we sent notice by first class mail as was allowed, but we need a waiver, I believe, at the outset to resolve that issue.
So I make a motion to move. Just a motion to waive. I need to make a motion to waive our rules of notice for docket 2021-41-Z.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, can we roll call this one or?
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Again, my name is Rick Lawrence with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger. We're here tonight on behalf of the petitioner, Lennar Homes of Indiana. With me tonight is Keith Lash, Vice President of Land with Lennar. As noted, the matter before you this evening is a request to rezone approximately 119 acres from the rural agricultural to the R3 zoning district, partially within the Michigan Road overlay. Lennar has had tremendous success with its Manchester Estates development, which is across the street from Town Hall, and its homes offered in the Hampshire neighborhood, and wants to develop another neighborhood for buyers desiring to live in Zionsville. The subject real estate is outlined in green on the aerial in front of you and behind tab 2 in your informational brochure. Real estate consists of 4 acres comprising approximately 119 acres and is generally located east of US 421 and south of County Route 200 South. All four parcels are zoned rural agricultural, and the 2 western parcels are within the Michigan Road overlay. The 2 westernmost parcels are currently a golf practice range, and the 2 eastern parcels are used for agricultural purposes. Immediately to the north, south, and west, the area is zoned agricultural and is comprised of farming operations and single-family homes. Immediately to the east is the Union Woodland subdivision, which is zoned R3. The Brookhaven and Fieldstone neighborhoods are further south and are zoned R2. On display is the concept plan for the community, which is also included behind tab 4 of the brochure. Sierra Meadows residential community will consist of 278 single-family detached homes. Area A, which is approximately the western half of the development and shaded brown, will have 134 lots with a minimum width of 65 foot at the building setback line, minimum home site areas of 8,000 square feet, minimum home size of 2,400 square feet for 2-story homes and 2,000 square feet for ranch homes. Area B, which is approximately the eastern half of the development and highlighted in a green or light green color, will have 144 lots with a minimum width of 50 foot at the building setback line, minimum home site areas of 6,500 square feet, minimum home sizes of 2,000 square foot for 2-story homes and 1,800 square feet for ranch homes. Behind tab 6 of your informational brochure are proposed commitments, which among other items include the above noted standards and limit the total number of homes to not exceed 278. Additionally, neighborhood amenities, including a swimming pool, pool house, children's pool, and playground are proposed. All common areas and open spaces within the community would be maintained in perpetuity by the homeowners association. On display now are examples of the single-family homes proposed for this neighborhood. Lennar will be offering distinctive home sites and plans from its Cornerstone Collection and Venture Collection series, with anticipated prices ranging from $350,000 to $600,000. All the home sites will comply with all R3 development and architectural standards. Further, for the reference commitments, Lennar proposes the following enhancements. All siding shall be brick, stone, wood, cement fiberboard, or stucco. No vinyl siding will be allowed. The use of dimensional shingles, anti-monotony provisions, and require the use of masonry on the front elevations. As required by the Zionsville ordinance, Lennar completed a traffic impact study for the proposed development. The traffic impact study took into account and analyzed the nearby proposed developments and approved developments in drafting its conclusions and recommendations. Those conclusions and recommendations were reviewed by the town, the county, and NDOT, and pursuant to those reviews and further discussion with Lennar, Lennar has proposed the following, which are also included in the proposed commitments. 1, Lennar commits to making any and all improvements at the entrance to 421, the entrance along 421 as required by NDOT. And 2, based upon review approval and right of way from either NDOT, the county, or the town, Lennar will commit to constructing a westbound left turn lane at the intersection of US 421 and County Road 200 South. However, in the event of a future NDOT improvement project, that intersection were to occur before Lennar completes those improvements, in lieu of constructing those improvements, Lennar would contribute an equal amount of funds to the cost of those improvements as proposed by NDOT. These road improvements are more fully detailed in the proposed commitments, as I noted. Further, Lennar understands as the development proceeds, it would be responsible to repair any damage to County Road 200 South, along with the installation of acceleration and deceleration lanes along the south side of County Road 200 South into the proposed neighborhood. In conclusion, Lennar would appreciate and welcome any feedback and comments. Otherwise, we would request that the Plan Commission send this to a favorable recommendation to the Town Council. We remain available to answer any questions now or at the conclusion of the public hearing. Thank you.
Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this petition?
Hello and good evening. My name is Ron Hopwood, owner of Hopwood Cellars Winery and William Rose Distillery in downtown Zionsville. I'm here with my family and of course friends, also the Zionsville residents. We live at 2055 South US 421 here in Zionsville. We're at the southeast corner of 421 and 200 South. Our property of 16 acres is adjacent to the property that is being discussed. Hopwood Cellars Winery has been in operation here in Zionsville for 10 years. Nearly 65% of our customers come from outside Zionsville. We are a tourist business, a business that is very good for Zionsville and the surrounding shops. Customers come here for the fine wine, of course, and entertainment, but also come to shop and see beautiful Zionsville and escape their daily routines. Most of you are aware that we purchased the 16-acre property, 2055 South US 421 in 2019 for one reason, to open a winery and vineyard. A place for the community to come and relax, enjoy a glass of wine or have a picnic, a place to enjoy the views of the beautiful vineyard. We have already begun the work toward this vision. Before we purchased the property, we were made aware of a builder that had an offer on the acreage around us. We inquired, and at that time, the builder was going to build a 55-plus community with single-story houses. So we decided to proceed with the offer and purchase the 16 acres for the winery and vineyard. To this point, we have spent a lot of our own money to pursue this. We are sad when we heard that the 55-plus community with single-story houses was no longer on the table. That brings us to now. After reviewing Lennar's new development, we feel without a doubt that this is not the right development for that location. At first, we heard of the details were in a letter to inform us of the meeting. We were surprised that Lennar did not do the neighborly thing and reach out to us personally, as they are aware of us and have our phone numbers and email addresses. Our objections to this lie with not just our view rights, but the future patrons of the winery having to look at the back of box houses. Please excuse my definition of box, but it seems to get right to the point of what I mean and what we will see. So much thought is put into the front elevations, as we saw. None on the backside. I saw no backsides. There are ordinances against this. We did not choose this view. We understand the new buyers in their communities can choose to have bump outs, back porches, etc., or some uniqueness. But we all know very few will add this expense on a builder's home. We're aware that builders will put in mounds and pine trees, but this does not do a great job of blocking a tall 2-story house. And it takes many years for the trees to grow, and they do die. This is not attractive to current homeowners. It is just a short-term Band-Aid. Last month, in a similar situation, another current homeowner spoke at this town meeting against a builder, and she was asking why she had to look at the back of a box, her words. She moved to the rural area to have a beautiful view and see the sunsets, which she had mentioned the new house will now block her sunsets. She has rights. I am also a realtor broker of 25 years. I, as most people are aware, that her property value will decline because of her new unchosen view. The home buyers that choose to move to rural communities choose for the peace, quiet, and nice views, not to look at the back of a box. Please understand, I am not suggesting stopping the growth. Everyone knows I am for growth. Inside Lennar's community, when a buyer purchases one of the homes, this new buyer will choose to accept the views. And sometimes the builder will build a pond, etc., between the houses. But very little thought is given to the existing houses that the community will back up to. Where are the elevations for the backside of houses when they butt up against current homeowners' properties? Yes, I believe in growth, the right growth, the growth that pairs well with what is currently here in the community. Imagine for a moment this was happening to your backyard, to your peaceful views, sunsets, or imagine going to a winery, having a glass of wine and a picnic, and seeing a beautiful vineyard interrupted by the backside of a 2-story box with a high pitch towering over the view of your grapevines. We are surprised Lennar made no attempt to meet with us and to be a good neighbor, as they are aware of the building of a winery and vineyard next to them. Lennar's development is not the best for this location, and definitely not for future customers to a winery and vineyard that relies on its views. Do note, we're not saying no to a housing development. We're saying no to this project, as it does not fit with the current community plan. Current homeowners have rights against this, rights that builders need and can do more than mounds and pine trees. Custom builders are aware of this and generally will have attractive looking backsides as well as front elevations. We oppose this project as not being the best fit for this property, as this does not blend well with what the Zionsville community is asking for. I welcome any questions. Thank you very much.
I've got one quick question. Didn't, as part of your approval, you asked to be able to do like outside events, performances as part of some sort of?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this docket?
I'm Michael Howard. I'm the attorney for the Hamilton County Airport Authority, and we are here to voice our strong opposition to this project, not because of the size and the shapes of the homes or the additional traffic, et cetera, but because of the public health, safety, and convenience issues. Several months ago, we were before you, and the primary focus at that time was the noise over the homes that would be there and the need to disclose to potential homeowners that there would be noise. Well, noise is an aggravation. But since this time, at that hearing, we mentioned the location of detention ponds and that could be a real hazard to navigation in the previous project. You were somewhat constrained because the residential zoning was already in place And we're still trying to make progress on that issue. But this case, this is a clear rezone where you have health, safety, and welfare as a consideration. I'm going to be referring to the brochure or to the circular. This is an advisory circular prepared by the United States Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration. In that publication, they strongly recommend that there be no wildlife attracting features within 5,000 feet of a airport that is limited to propeller driven or piston driven aircraft, and 1,000 feet of where there are jet aircraft. If you look at the map before you, in this case, the eastern property line of this project is essentially the extension of the west line of the airport runway. This is clearly right on the approach. And we met with the developer in a conference call approximately 2 months ago to discuss this project. And the first thing that jumped off the page was that we got a detention pond here, and they are defined as wildlife attracting features for geese, heron, and other large birds. We suggested it would be a good idea to move that pond as a minimum as far away from the runway as possible. And when we got into the packet last week, we found that it hadn't moved an inch. And of course, all of these ponds are within 10,000 feet of the proposed use. And just to let you know, we're not here complaining about wildlife for free. Approximately 3 years ago, the airport and the FAA invested $1.1 million in wildlife fencing around the airport. That was to keep primarily deer, coyotes, and other animals on the land from getting on the runway and having a collision with an aircraft. When that situation, the aircraft's already on the ground. It's either getting ready to take off or has landed. In this situation, you're talking about large 25-pound geese being ingested by jet engines or being hit by propellers. There is an alternative. We're not against development. The circular points out that in certain circumstances, it might make sense to construct either dry detention or impervious detention, whereby the water, if there is a storm event, the water would sink into the ground or sink into a pipe or some way, eliminate the water within 48 hours. While that is not optimum, it clearly, given the danger to not only people in the airplane, but people on the ground, that would be a small price to pay and a small investment by this developer. We hope that you would, again, look at the health, safety, and welfare issues here. The chances of waterfowl being hit by an airplane are very small, but it only has to happen once. And you talk about losing life, millions of dollars of property damage in that situation, plus the plane ending up on top of one of these residents. So we strongly recommend that you leave this property right where it is as agricultural. The airport's been there for 60 years. When these people bought it, the airport was there. And this same issue was there then. It hadn't been studied as much by the FAA, but this is a dangerous health, safety, and welfare issue. And we strongly recommend a negative recommendation to the council. Thank you very much.
Can I correct you briefly for the minutes? You had noted that there was a 5,000-foot distance on a propeller airplane.
Yes.
And then you said a 1,000-foot.
10,000. Thank you.
I just wanted that clear for the minutes.
Thank you. You can come and work for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So any other members of the public?
My name is Greg Holbrook. I live at 1945 South, 1100 East. I live about 500 feet north of 200 South. I certainly understand that at some point in this land will be developed. How, when, and what are not even able to be considered yet. A part of this development is to study the traffic. And I hear a traffic study was done. And they said that they looked at how future developments besides this one will affect the traffic as well. How can they actually accurately do that? Know those patterns. Is the traffic study supposed to be a useful tool, or is it dotting an I and crossing of a T so we can move on? I hope it's intended to be a useful tool. There are too many houses in process that have not been finished to have any idea of what impact the proposed development will have. I believe that as a town, it is bad to approve new developments too far ahead of the completion of developments that have already been approved. Otherwise, then if that is the case, then the traffic study cannot be counted on reliably. I drive 200 South every day to and from work, as well as Michigan Road. Traffic changes on both 200 South and Michigan Road will affect me greatly. I also believe that this density of housing as proposed is out of character with the surrounding developments. If you look at subdivisions surrounding Union Elementary, the differences are readily apparent. In addition, further loading of the schools and the airport all point to this development being inappropriate, at least at this time and in this place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Stark. I'm here with my husband, Ken. We live at 11920 East 200 South. It was just about 15 years ago that my husband and I came up in front of a committee just like you're on, and we asked to subdivide my parents' farm so that we could have 7 acres to build our own farm. At that time, and I would wish you'd go back and look at the notes, the council said, this is exactly what we need in that area. They overwhelmingly approved it, supported it, and went furthermore to cheer us in the starting of our new life here in Zionsville. Recently, we have participated in not only the McKenna, but we also have been participating in the airport meetings. This participation has opened our eyes to many things that are being brought to the area, as well as the Lennar and the Silverthorne homes. It's made us think about what is appropriate for the area and what should be needed in the area. As I mentioned, we live on Country Road 200 South. That's right, it is a country road. The onslaught of this building will bring increased traffic that will interfere with the safety and welfare of the people that live in the area. As a matter of fact, on our way driving in today, we passed 2 groups of cyclists, one of 10 and one of 9. This is a regular occurrence on 200 South, and mostly because to the north of us, 32 is being developed, and to the south of us, 146 or 300 is being developed. No, there's no place for cyclists, walkers, agricultural farming equipment to travel in a safe and secure manner. So they use 200 South. We keep talking about an infrastructure plan. It's been 10 plus years since an independent infrastructure plan has been developed. And I repeat, independent. Okay, this needs to be done outside of someone with personal interest in what that plan's outcome will be. You know, it was brought up in the McKenna discussions, don't fear change, it's coming. I welcome change. I love to see some of the change. Hopwood Cellars is fantastic. I'm excited about what's being done there, and that is appropriate change for the area. We need to consider the size, the location, and the infrastructure when we make that change, or we're gonna soon become like a Westfield and Fishers, where it's being overrun with vehicles, it's unsafe to travel. As you look at this request is for the infrastructure study to be done to look at farm equipment, cyclists, and also the walking and regular car activity that needs to be done, because 10 plus years has been far too long. The the Lennar and the Silverthorne that has been proposed is not commensurate with the area. It's not commensurate with the style. It will diminish our property values of all the existing homes that we have. This is an estate rural location and it needs to stay that way. This is why people demand and come to Zionsville. This is what drives that activity. So today I urge you to look at completing that infrastructure study, furthering develop McKenna analysis, and again, keeping the rural beauty of our Union Township and our village of Zionsville, because I believe both of these projects are not doing that, not in line with what we have and what we continuing wanting to foster in Zionsville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to, for us to be able to talk to you and express our concerns.
Would you please state your name and address?
My name is Tom Chope. My wife Sheila and I have lived at 11050 East 200 South here in Zionsville for almost 31 years. We are very concerned about this Lennar petition and the other development proposals in the area because of 4 reasons. The first, and I'm gonna go over some ground that everybody else has said already. The first concern is vehicles, safety, and congestion. The drawings and the information detail provided by Lennar shows 278 lots on 119 acres. This could result in approximately 556 vehicles either entering or exiting the Lennar development twice each working day through 3 places, and there is no traffic control at any of those 3 places. One entrance is to County Road 200 South, which has been said is a narrow 2-lane country road. The other entrance and exit is onto 421, a major, very busy US highway. And the third entrance and exit out of the Lennar development is through the still, I believe, not approved Silverthorne development and out their exit into 200 South. That would go along with the 358 vehicles exiting and entrancing onto 200 South out of the Silverthorne development. A further safety problem is a non-vehicular one, that being a pedestrian and or bicycle usage of County Road 200 South. Frequently, local residents and others walk or ride bicycles on the narrow 2-lane country road. Motor vehicles don't seem to slow down for us. Just recently, and I'm sure most of us know about this, on the 18th of September, tragically, an 84-year-old Zionsville woman was killed by a vehicle crashed while enjoying fresh air and exercise by riding her bicycle on County Road 200 South, right down the street from us. Secondly, the property size and dwelling values are not in line with current properties and dwellings both north and south of the proposed development. They are also not in line or equal to the values of the proposed Silverthorne development, which is directly to the east of the Lennar proposal. We believe that this current proposal is not and would not be beneficial to either the current residents and property values of the area or proposed future residents. Thirdly, like our friend has said, concerns concerning the executive airport. The following is a direct quote from the letter of the on the letter of September 9th from the Airport Authority to this commission. Quote, "The Hamilton County Airport Authority is writing to express formal opposition to petition 2021-41-Z Lennar Homes initial filing. This petition requests the rezoning of land near the Indianapolis Executive Airport from AG to R3 with the intent of developing this land with single-family homes. We believe that such development would not be in the best interests of Zionsville, the future residents of this community, or the aviation community. Our primary concern is for the safety of the residents of the proposed community and the surrounding area. Last concern we have involves consideration of facilities and infrastructure. Union Elementary School is already, we are told, close to capacity. The proposed developments would contribute an influx of a possibility of an additional 2,000 new students. We have been advised that this is a Zionsville problem. As previously stated, County Road 200 South is a narrow 2-lane country road not capable of coping with 914 vehicles daily. Again, we have been advised this is a Zionsville problem. Also, as previously stated, there are no traffic control systems in place, and the current roads could not cope with the volume of traffic onto and off of US 421. Again, we have been advised that this is a Zionsville problem. Therefore, as citizens of Zionsville and residents of Union Township, we are among the main deeply concerned regarding the numerous developments planned along US 421 and in Union Township in the absence of a cumulative study of the impact of much higher density housing resulting from Appaloosa Crossing, Lennar, Silverthorne, and the Executive Airport developments in the context of a fully built out Holiday Farms neighborhood. Until an impact study with the infrastructure improvement recommendations and an approved plan with rights of way, easements, drainage, existing/future traffic, intersection management for the cumulative anticipated traffic and growth can be demonstrated, we would like to see a halt to further zoning approvals and new construction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy McClure, live at 358 South, 1100 East. First question I have is been involved with the airport things. You want all of that's going to come down. Why are we building houses when that's what you want to take? That's what the airport's wanting to have. Is that part of the plan? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Why you're wanting to expand all the way across 421, all the way down to 300, all the way to 1200. Now you're putting a big subdivision in. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And you can go along with the lot size. I've been trying to get a pole barn built. Act of Congress, plus some. But yet you can change it to put a 50 to 65 feet house. And I can't use 2/10 of my acreage. So, to me, that just doesn't seem fair, for lack of better terms. You want to just go and change the whole landscape of the way it is. And yet, what's good for this? Because we can get more tax dollars. We can get more money off of this. But yet, for the people that's been there my wife has been there for 60-some years. No, you can't do that. Or is that fair? But that's just my opinion. And also, as they were talking about the gentleman was talking about the retention ponds. I got geese flying across there all the time. So you're going to put attraction, because I got a creek running down the middle of my property. There's geese down there all the time. There's all that stuff. So what's it going to take for one of them on the approach or worse takeoff geese or whatever get from that pond up in there You've got houses, you've got schools right there at the other end of it. Long time ago, lived in Indianapolis. Daughter was in first grade, somewhere in that area, over on the west side of town when the jet plane come down right by the school. And that wasn't from geese or anything else. Needless to say, I was a little on the nervous side when that happened. So you're putting up a big potential for that to happen right there. Just my thought. Not to mention all the airport Zoom meetings and whatever, lots of complaints of noise. You really want to put yourself in to hearing about 400 times the complaints of noise, even though, yes, it will have to be stipulated they're in the noise thing, but has that ever stopped anybody? So had the other people. So you want to put yourself in that position to listen to that all the time? I sure as heck wouldn't, but that's me. And the traffic, 1100 is pretty good cut through. I suspect we get probably 50, 75 cars at least a day cutting through 32 to 200 across and 200 that way. So you're going to take that when they're running a better part of 50, 60 mile an hour usually, some more than that. You're going to take that, you're going to multiply that times however many cars you're going to put in from us housing development. Multiply that times all the cut throughs, and that's going to make more people cutting through to do that. So that ain't a real good idea. And not to mention, have you ever driven down 200 in the winter to get to stop? I know you have. You know, you're going to come up there and then you're going to go down, slide right out into the 421, which has happened and happens all the time. Do that twice a day, going and coming. You get coming up north, you've got a person turning to your left, go down 200. His turn signal's on, you got a little decel lane now. You're there, and you got a guy flying right up behind you because he's wanting to go around you both. Multiply that times however many. And you had a bigger decel lane, but you also proposed a opening farther south on 421 versus end of 200, County Road 200. Is that all going to be connected? So are you going to just change where the crashes happen? They're going to start the first one, or is it still going to be on 200? There's a lot of crashes there, a lot. So, you know, what's that? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. On the other thing, I guess we're not talking about the airport stuff now, are we? Okay. Anyway, sorry. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It really kind of upsets me when you start changing the rules. I guess it's changing the rules for the income. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the other members of the public? Would the petitioner like to respond? Or, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lee Bowman. I'm at 11324 Evercairn Court in the Brookhaven neighborhood. The only thing that I don't think was covered in the discussion and it was mentioned by the last individual was about the schools and the Union Elementary School. And the traffic impact study takes into account 200 South and 421 and having not seen the results of that, I can't speak to that in detail. We did not discuss, though, as you're coming out of these new subdivisions, recognizing that at school drop-off and pickup time, you're going to be turning left onto 421 and left onto 300 South to get in. The natural instinct is for people to go the other way. So they will take 200 South and go down Little Eagle Creek Road or County Line Road. And if you think 200 South is a tricky road to drive in any kind of weather, those are a little twisty, curvier, and narrow. And additionally, I do bike. I don't bike up on 200 South or County Line Road anymore. I'm old and it's too busy. But the Gray Goat bike group down in Carmel, they arrange rides a couple times a week, and it goes right up there through Little Eagle Creek Road and down 200 South. Those are the bikes you see. So it's a programmed ride, and the unintended and unmeasured consequences from the traffic impact survey on those other roads for Union Elementary, which anyone who's going to be moving into these new developments, that's the attraction. They want the best school in the state for their little kids. And so that's not captured in the existing body of evidence for the determination. I think that's a big risk factor for safety for both bikers and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one online. Let me start with the one online and then I'll give you. Go ahead. Can you hear us? She's
Okay,
muted.
can you hear me
Oh,
now?
she-
Sorry, I'm not so technologically advanced. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Apparently I had to unmute my microphone. My name is Beth Kramer and I live at the corner of 200 South and 1200 East. I wanted to mirror the concerns of my neighbors, but I also wanted to paint a picture for the committee of just what 200 South is like. Most people see me walking my dog every day. 200 South is a very narrow road and it was just paved and elevated. So we literally have no shoulder or a soft shoulder. And when there's traffic coming, you literally have to step off a cliff to step off the road. And as my neighbors could probably attest to, mowing after they've paved it is really a pain. But cyclists can't go off on a shoulder. Anyone walking can't move over very easily. And especially when the weather's bad and in the winter, that could be precarious as well. So like I said, I'm very concerned. I don't want to waste your time, and I mirror the concerns of my neighbors. But I want you to realize that when we say 200 South is this rural, narrow road, exactly what it's like. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll give one more, just as long as it's not just traffic. Got something more than traffic for you. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Lepler. My husband Mike and our children live at 1850 South, 1200 East, Zionsville. I grew up in Zionsville and have spent much of my life in Boone County. We moved back to Zionsville in 2008 and purchased our current property in 2015. We moved from our original Zionsville home, which was on the east side of the west side of Michigan Road on East 300 South. And we chose to leave that area to come to the area over on 1200 because it was more rural with single family homes on large parcels and reduced traffic. We went through a phase where we couldn't hardly get pulled up our driveway on 300 South. So we went through the process of getting a special exception to build our home, subdividing a larger parcel at that time to form two 13-acre parcels, and obtaining a building permit. Part of our approval process required that we design a home that fit in, was similar in size and architecture to the surrounding homes. That was big to the committee that we do that. We had to produce pictures and everything else of what we planned to build. We are opposed to this development for several reasons. These homes are not like any other developments in our area with the proposed density, front-facing garages, narrow lots, and overall tract home look. They're not similar in value and will likely set a precedent for future development in our area. People often remark how beautiful our area is. We are the east gateway to Zionsville, and the image presented should be considered. We do not want to mimic the feel that Westfield has created with these style tract subdivisions. Zionsville has always had an upscale, quaint feel to it, with the town and beautiful homes that maintain our property values. Some of the other was talking about the additional traffic. My daughter rides horseback on these roads. My kids are on bicycles. The speed limit is suggested 40 mile an hour, and it certainly isn't enforced, or if it is, it's very rare that we'll see somebody enforcing the speed limit there. So it is a dangerous thing. Again, this is in direct conflict with both the airport study and I think it's called the charrette meetings that we had for the development of the new Zionsville Town Code held by the McKenna Group, which was hired by the town of Zionsville. And then the last thing was clearly the ponds creating a hazard with the wildlife and that would be drawn to it. So with these things considered, we ask that the Planning Commission deny the request for rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the petitioner like to respond?
Yes, I have a couple comments I would like to make. Just a couple comments. I failed to remark in my presentation that we did hold a neighborhood meeting in September in which we invited the surrounding property owners to a presentation that was very similar to today's so that we could get feedback and comments and concerns that they had, which were again similar to what we heard today. The second thing I'd like to address, gentleman from the winery had pointed out that the views of rear homes. Lennar has tried to take an approach with the design of this property to contain the rear of the homes within the subdivision and limit the number of rear of the homes that would be visible from County Road 200 South and also 421. With that said, Lennar would commit to having one-story homes, the 5 properties that abut the winery's property, which looking at the map, I believe would be these 5 right in this area, if I wasn't shaking so much. So Lennar will commit to that to address one of the concerns that the neighbors had brought up. And then finally, I would like to address what the airport authority had stated. Earlier today, we were presented with a plan that outlined what possibility of a dry detention system would look like on the site. Unfortunately, we were provided to it today. We didn't have a chance to incorporate it in the informational brochures. I have a handout that I can pass out to the Plan Commission members. Then I can also show it on the overhead here. This plan is very preliminary in nature as it involves a little more engineering than I'm familiar with. But in any event, the idea would be, and it's easier to see on the handout, there are green areas that would be identified as dry detention, and they would flow generally into the existing pond that's located on the southwest corner of the property, which is there in this general area. Lennar would commit to reviewing this further with the airport authority and then staff to determine if this was an acceptable resolution to some of the issues and concerns that have been raised this evening. With that, we'd welcome any comments that the Plan Commission would have that we could address or look into further.
Thank you. So moving on to staff report. Yes, Janet, sorry. Staff report, Janet.
Okay, staff has already submitted a staff report, detailed staff report to the Plan Commission. However, For purposes tonight, very briefly, density remains an issue and concern of staff with this project. Citing the recommendation of the comprehensive plan of low-density residential development, as well as consideration of responsible growth and development of this area, staff recommends an unfavorable recommendation to the town council.
Thank you. Any members of the commission?
So I just want to note, we had requests to deny this. We don't have that ability. Our ability is only to make a favorable or unfavorable recommendation to town council. They ultimately decide on this. So just note for the public. So even if we have an unfavorable recommendation, that doesn't stop this from moving forward at the town council level.
Wayne, I had one question. On the drawing they presented to us, it had sidewalk or trees between the sidewalks and the road. Those are not allowed by county, is that correct?
Correct. The rural street cross-section does not typically entertain street trees. There's an under drain component that the county looks to have within its infrastructure system.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns?
Given my location and proximity to this development, I'm going to recuse myself on this.
Mine's just pretty simple. Hopwood, when they came before us a year or two ago, one of the items that they wouldn't be able to include was the ability to do events, outdoor entertainment. And I think we approved that based on the fact that the adjoining property was a golf range and other agricultural, and we didn't see there being any concern. It sounds, that you could make the statement, well, Hopwood was there first. I've just been in multiple situations where once you start putting a residential component next to something like that, even though they were there first, the nature of review boards is to then start to favor the residents over the business. The Hopwood group came to us with a pretty well-developed plan that they've been working on for a number of years to develop. And I don't think this will be what am I looking for? In harmony with the what we've previously approved out there.
Go ahead. Go ahead. If you got
I was just going to add, if the plan commission would so be inclined, we would request an additional month to review some density options potentially with the staff and review the dry detention pond with the airport and reach out to the winery and see if there were other buffering options available to garner their support.
a continuance to the 15th meeting, correct? November 15th.
So I don't want to waste anybody's time or effort, but we're also looking at the airport comprehensive plan in general and adopting that in some form into the town's comprehensive plan. And that plan does not support this type of development. This density, and by this density, I don't mean you can take 20 homes out and get to the density you need. You have to take like 150 homes out and get to the density you need. So we can certainly discuss continuance, but I don't know that that's going to give you the resolution you need in this project.
I agree.
I think Lennar would still like the option to try to come to some resolution on the density.
Gotcha. Wayne, has this been continued once before already?
We did open your initial hearing, I believe, last month. So this matter as a rezoning was continued once to today's meeting. I believe that's the case.
Okay.
I would add the continuance is because of a noticing issue. While we were prepared to present something, we learned that weekend before that the auditor's list wasn't complete, so we had to renotice it.
Is there a motion to continue forward? So we got a motion for anything, guys.
So the question is, they can request a continuance. We don't have to grant one, correct?
Right, it's your discretion since they've had one. It's your discretion now.
I'll make the motion. I move that docket number 2021-41-Z to rezone 119 plus acres from the rural AG agricultural zoning district and the rural MRO Michigan Road overlay zoning district to a rural R3 single family and two family residential zoning district and rural MRO Michigan Road overlay zoning district. Receive a unfavorable recommendation based on the findings and in the staff report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, could you take roll, please?
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Nay.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Motion fails or no,
Motion
passes. The docket has been denied.
It's an unfavorable recommendation.
I'm sorry, it's an unfavorable recommendation forwarded to town council.
We do appreciate your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you very much. Moving on, 2021-47-CA Sunbeam Development Corporation Hub Phase 2, 4155 South, 300 East, and 4255 South, 300 East. Petition for a commitment amendment to modify commitments associated with Planning Commission approval of docket 2019-52-Z, recorded in the Office of the Recorders of Boone County, Indiana, as instrument number 2020012, or I'm sorry, 13512. It's a petitioner present.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Sheward. I'm a civil engineer with Kimley Horn and Associates. Our offices are at 250 East 96th Street, Suite 580, Indianapolis, Indiana. Tonight, I'm here representing Sunbeam Development Corporation in 4 different petitions. It's the next 4 on the agenda. If it so pleases, I can speak to all 4, if that's okay. So, as you may recall, we were here last month with a petition for a development plan approval for Building 3, a development plan approval for Building 4, the commitment amendment approval, and a primary plat approval for this project that's located on the southeast corner of County Road 300 and 400 on the far west side of Zionsville. Really, over the last month, our team has worked with staff to narrow down and frankly give staff a bit more time to review the petition, as well as address some concerns that they had surrounding, I guess I'll explain the joint maintenance of a 2-lot subdivision where there's common drainage infrastructure in between both. And so we've worked with staff, specifically Michael Susong and the rest of the staff, on putting together operations and maintenance manual that's joint between the 2 lots. And as a reminder to the Planning Commission, Sunbeam intends to own both lots into perpetuity, but we wanted to make sure that there was a mechanism in place should a time come that one lot was sold, that there was a mechanism to ensure that there was going to be maintenance of the common access drive through the middle, as well as the string of drainage and BMPs into the long term. So as well as what we provided, and I presume Janice had provided you all, was a list of, as a reminder, the 2 modifications to the existing 12 commitments that were made at the time of the rezone. One was related to a gap in the berm along 300. And that was due to the hardship of the Duke easement that crosses 300 at that location. They wouldn't allow us to have trees or a berm in their easement, as well as the emergency access drive that's gated, not intended to be a public access point, but it nonetheless violated the requirement to not have curb cuts on 300. So that was modification of commitment 9 and 12. And then there are 4 proposed commitments. One, that the evergreens on the mound adjacent to Saratoga, the 12-foot mound with the 6-foot fence, that the evergreens put on from day one would be at least 8 foot tall and not 4 to 6 feet tall. So that was commitment 13. Commitment 14 was that the berm and fence, again, adjacent to Saratoga, would be graded and seeded when the detention pond is dug and the topsoil is stripped from the property for development. So at the very beginning of the project, and that the landscaping would be installed by no later than June 1st of 2022. So it wouldn't be waited till the very end of the project for that to happen. Commitment 15 was that all commitments previously recorded, which was 1 through 12, and commitment number 13, which again was the 8-foot evergreens at the time of planning on the Saratoga mound, would be completed and adhered to by the certificate of occupancy. So it put some specific teeth in when that would have to happen. And then lastly, commitment 16 was a bit of a broad statement, but the joint maintenance of the commonly used stormwater infrastructure, BMPs, and the shared access drive would be the responsibility of lot 1 and lot 2, or I should say lot 3 and lot 4, where building 3 and building 4 would be located. We're here to answer any questions the Planning Commission has. I guess I'll probably leave it at that. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions the Planning Commission has.
Just to be clear, so you said on your proposed commitment 16, it should be lots 1 and 2 instead of not lots 3 and 4, but lots 1 and 2.
We had labeled them lot 3 for building 3 and lot 4 for building 4. The naming of the lots, I mean, the primary plat shows it as lot 3 and lot 4, just to keep consistency between building 3 and building 4. But there are 2 proposed lots for the project. The intent is that those 2 lots will be responsible for the joint maintenance of the facilities that are common to both of those 2 lots. So sorry if I confused you on that.
No, you haven't confused me. I don't think you've answered it, but in terms of your commitment that you will have, that you're requesting to be improved, will your commitment 16 continue to refer to lots 3 and 4, or will that be changed?
No, it'll stay 3 and 4. I apologize for my nomenclature. Okay. We'll say 3 and 4 because that's consistent with the primary plat as it sits.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'd add 1 or 2 items. My name's Jamie Chrisman. I'm with Sunbeam Development, 11800 Exit 5 Parkway, Fishers, Indiana. I've been working with Mr. Andrioli as well as Mr. Toscari, who is a neighbor in the Saratoga neighborhood, over the last week or so, regarding some concerns that Mr. Toscari had related to the drainage and how that impacted his property. Sunbeam is willing to sign an agreement or a memo of understanding with Mr. Toscari, which reflects the following items that we've been discussing with him, and as well as his representative, Mr. Andrioli. The first one is that we will agree to plant 10 green giant trees and 5 deciduous trees, which are of a height of 4 to 6 feet on Mr. Toscari's property. Previously, we had agreed to plant 5 trees on his property. The trees will be planted at a location of Mr. Toscari's choosing, as long as the location is outside of the existing legal drain. Currently, there's an existing legal drain on his property, which I believe is about 150 feet. That legal drain, once we reroute the legal drain, Mr. Toscari would like to petition the drainage board to vacate part of that existing legal drain. So we're agreeable to planting those trees once he has gotten approval from the drainage board to vacate part of that easement. If he would like us to plant trees in an area that's outside of the easement as it sits today, we're willing to do that as well. We would ask that petition to the drainage board by Mr. Toscari or his representative be completed by June of 22, which is when we have committed to building the berm adjacent to his property. In addition, we've agreed to relocate 10 trees that sit on his property today. Same situation as it relates to the easement, assuming he can get the easement vacated with the drainage board. We'll move those once that easement has been vacated. These last two commitments are conditioned upon the easement being vacated by the drainage board. We'll also guarantee all the new trees. That's the 15 trees I spoke of initially for 1 year from when we plant them, but we're not responsible for the relocation of the 10 trees if they don't survive. Also, we'll ensure that all the damaged areas by the installation of the new piping, dipping, heavy equipment, that is going to be part of our activities for the rerouting on the legal drain on Mr. Toscari's property will be seeded, hydro seeded, including straw. If the area needs to be reseeded for a period of up to 6 months upon completion, we will do that as well. We'll also take commercially reasonable steps to provide watering when available during the 6-month period to any area that needs to be reseeded. The legal drain reconstruction will take place at the beginning of our project, so we won't have a water source on site because of the timing of the project, but we'll do what we can to water the area that needs to be reseeded. And as part of this agreement, our discussions with Mr. Toscari and his representative, Mr. Androli, was that they would not be remonstrating against our drainage related to the development at the Plan Commission and or the Drainage Board. There's a 20-day waiting period for the Drainage Board. There was a delay in that being registered with the newspapers and filed, but they've agreed not to petition against that as part of this agreement. That's all I have to add.
Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this docket?
For the record, my name is Mike Andrioli, 1393 West Oak Street here in Zionsville. And Jamie Chrisman accurately represented the discussions that we've had with regard to trying to work through some of the issues as it relates to the rerouting of the legal drain. My sole role was to work with Mr. Toscari and Mr. Chrisman and their engineer, Mr. Seward, to try to accommodate some type of concessions in that regard to lessen the impact on Mr. Toscari's property as it relates to drainage issues. I must say that both the engineer and Mr. Chrisman were extremely responsive, got back to me right away, were extremely accommodating in terms of some of the requests. So quite frankly, from my standpoint, you would hope that all developers are that accommodating and willing to be responsive and get back to you in the appropriate time. My only request, and I've shared this with Mr. Chrisman, is we don't need an agreement in writing with Mr. Toscari or anything of that nature. We do, however, suggest that this be part of the developer's commitment with the appropriate commitment forms that Zionsville would oversee to make sure that that's part of the development, since it's extremely important, since this work's not going to be done until spring. And then if we waive the drainage board requirements, we need to have this as part of development commitment in order to make it work. I don't think there's going to be any difficulty getting the legal drain rerouted or canceled, as in essence, on Mr. Toscari's property. It was rerouted from his property around the corners of his property, and hence there's really no need for that legal drain as it cuts through his property, because it's now been approved for rerouting. So that shouldn't be a problem, but the agreement to plant trees in an area of Mr. Toscari's choice is specifically conditioned, and I think Mr. Chrisman said it correctly, conditioned upon making sure we can get that part of the legal drain where he seeks to put the trees vacated. As you know, you can't put trees in the area of illegal drains. So that's our obligation. We'll do that. I'm fully confident we'll be able to get that done. And the timeline suggested by Mr. Chrisman is more than reasonable in order to be able to go ahead. We anticipate actually requesting that fairly soon. So that was my sole role. Mr. Tricari may have some other comments regarding the development, but as far as my role in the discussions that we had and the working relationship that we had with Jamie and Brian, they were exemplary, and we certainly appreciate the quick responses that we were able to get in working with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name is Craig Triscari, 3270 Paddock Road. And as expressed, there is no comment as related to the easement. We worked out that through Mike and through Sunbeam. I don't have any issues pertaining to that at all. There are 3 other outstanding issues for the development itself that has not been either addressed or looking for the ability to ensure that some of these things occur the way that they're supposed to, or that you change. The first one deals with the grass on the berm. I just want to make this other comment that when it was being briefed, you're talking about planting the trees. Those were planted on before June 1st, right? The trees as well, right? That commitment. Okay. So right now, according to the commitment letters, both for phase 1 and 2, it's slow grow. I'm sorry, no grow or slow grow grass to be on the berm. And when we did the negotiations of no grow and slow grow, it doesn't mean that you won't mow the grass, because if you look up no grow for the grass, it grows 4 to 6 feet. The idea behind that commitment, which is in the commitment letter for this particular phase as well as the first, it was in order to provide less access to that area and disturbance of them trying to mow the berm all the time with just the regular grass, in that it would be something similar to what is already planted in the residential area. Could you put up the slide so I can show you some of this so you actually can see it? Okay, so this was part of the commitment letter in 2, and it's exactly the same. Commitment 1 was exactly the same for commitment 2. This was a landscaping exhibit done by Structure Point, which was Van Trust. And you see the trees, the berm, and the grass that's grown. And on that, it talked about what trees were to be planted and the sizes and all those other things that were in that commitment. It was also supposed to be, and again, the zoning requirements to enhance visual appeal. So that's looking at the property from my property out to the berm and the fence. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, that's what it looks like now. Well, actually, it looks a lot worse than that now, because that was a few months ago that was taken, but that's actually taken on the best property in the area. And the grass that's planted in there, I think it's prairie grass, which grows to about 3 or 4 feet. Okay. It hasn't been mowed. There is no mowing that's going on. There's spots and sketches. Now, that's an enhanced appeal. I don't think that was the intent. That was what was written as a commitment, and that needs to be changed. That's on the first berm that we have. So the second berm, that is not part of the commitment that we're supposed to have. Can you go to the next slide? That grass is supposed to be on both sides of the berm. That's what it looks like now. Okay, so that's what the berm looks like now for the residents. And go to the next slide. That's the other side. So you can see their 4-foot berm is well manicured. You know, it has all the stuff, and then you go up to the 12-foot berm and you have all the weeds and things on there. That needs to be mowed and that needs to be taken care of. I want to make sure that Sunbeam would commit today that they're gonna plant the proper grass on the berm. It's not going to be this kind of mess. that you're going to be putting right along next to residential property. The second commitment that we are concerned about is the 4-foot berm along 400. Now, in the agreement that Mr. Price had, or discussion that Mr. Price had with the individual residents on 400, we talked about an 8-foot berm that would be placed along that area, not a 4-foot berm. At a very minimum, I think this board should at least contact Mr. Price, because he has the records of the meeting. The individuals took records of the meeting when they were in the meeting, so they have written records of what was said and what was committed to, and ask if there was an oversight on his part in putting it into the commitment letter, because in the commitment letter, it actually is in parentheses and says approximately 4 feet. And I'm not sure why you would put approximately 4 feet other than just put 4 feet if that was what was agreed on. So again, I would ask the board at a minimum to go ahead and talk to Mr. Price and see what he actually committed to with the community. The other piece is that because there's only one entrance and one exit out of that area, the trucks have to go either around that building or on that backside of the area, which they're going to be pointing their trucks at all those residents' homes. 4 feet might be okay for cars, but for trucks, it is not. Trucks it's going to be a problem if you're having one entrance and one exit, and they're going to be going around that building and shining the light directly on those homes on 400. The 300 berm is not in dispute. There's no dispute on the 300 berm, but for the, okay, the 300 berm though is with Whitestown, is that correct? It's the Whitestown. The berm is, yeah, Whitestown promised an 8-foot berm. You're not going to be able to change what Whitestown's done, but Whitestown promised an 8-foot berm for his property on 300, and that's 4 feet, and that is not, it looks horrible. And if you haven't gone out there and taken a look at it, it doesn't work. If it's in the middle of a cornfield, you're fine, but if you have residents right across from that, it is not fine. And then the last part that needs to be addressed in this plan is the parking of trailers along Saratoga. Okay, so the parking in this plan, what they're asking you to do is to approve this plan that has 68 parking spots that are adjacent to Saratoga. It's about a football field away. Okay, that where you see the top of the building there, that's 2 football fields away. Okay, that's 2 football fields from the property there, and you can hear people talking out on the other side of that area if you're outside. If you're inside, the beeping, you can hear the constant beeping, even inside your house. It is extremely problematic and with noise. If you're going to put, if they're going to put parking there, about 68 parking, the recommendation would be that they don't do it for at least 6 to 8 years and allow the trees to actually root and actually grow and mature, because the trees don't do anything, even at 8 feet in separation the way they are. That doesn't prevent any noise, okay? That doesn't do anything. When they grow in 7 to 10 years, that might provide some blockage, but in this term, it doesn't. So I, again, would like for the community or this board to look at those 3 points in order to fix them, because they're not going to go away. They're just going to make matters worse for the community, and they're going to have to take other measures to deal with this. There should be some sound tests that are done if you're going to be putting these trailers right next to these residential properties, especially with the beeping, where you change the hours of operation so they're not doing it early in the morning or late at night, and you hear the constant beeping from these 5-story, 168 bay door facilities. It is very intrusive. And I finally just like to leave you this. This year, my property value was I asked for it to be audited, and it was reduced by $60,000. That doesn't include this structure or the structure that they're building next to my house, which is much more intrusive than what I got the devaluing from Whitestown on. And so this is a way of potentially trying to fix some of these problems that have been occurring in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Ralph Miller, 4490 South 300 East. I'm the only guy on 300 East. And I'd like to know why I can't get a 12-foot wall, because I'm looking facing it. Most of Saratoga is the back to it. I'm going to face these every day. And according to this, the trucks are going to be pulling in right there, facing my house. So I'm going to get light all the time from their headlights. I'm going to run down here and park.
Sir, you need to address the board.
Well, I'm going to ask him, am I getting a 12-foot wall in front of my?
Sir, you're asking.
Am I going to get a 12-foot wall in front of my, or 12-foot berm, whatever it is, in front of my house? You don't know. So that's why I was asking him. So maybe he could help me. Am I going to get that?
Sir, you need to address the board, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what do you want me to ask you? Am I going to get a 12-foot berm?
We'll get you the answer.
Yeah. Am I going to get the trees like Saratoga did? Because I'm at an 8-foot wall right next door. I'm this side of the border there. Whitestown was at. They promised me an 8-foot wall above the floor of the warehouse. I said 3 times, will this be above the floor of the warehouse? They said, yes. I can stand in my front yard and see people walking around. So it's not 8 feet tall above the floor of the warehouse. And I do hear the beeping constantly and the slam. I can hear people talking all the way over Frito-Lay, and they're building another one now right there at the side there, brand new in there. So I got all that going on too. But what I want to do is I'd like to get the same thing, 12-foot wall, so I don't have to see the lights, and the length of my property at least. You know, I don't care what they do down there, because Everett's probably never ever sell that property, so it's not going to affect anybody there. But at least the length of my property and a 12-foot wall with trees too, so I can get this blocked out. I mean, I like looking at the corn. Yeah, and I can't do anything about building the warehouses. You're going to build a warehouse. I understand that. But at least give me something so I don't have to look at the lights every day shining in my house. That's what I'm asking for.
Right.
And the mature trees. If you plant a tree like you get from Lowe's for on sale for 50% off the end of the year, that thing will take 40, 50 years before I ever get anything from that. So I'd like to have mature trees too on my side. So I don't think I'm asking any more than the people at Saratoga that's backing up to it. I'm facing it, looking right at it all day long. At least I'd rather see it at the back of my house than at the front of my house. So I'd at least have a 12-foot wall and trees, planted trees. Okay.
Thank you. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Are you directly across from these buildings being developed, or are you across from buildings that were already developed?
I'm directly across from this building 3, I guess it is.
Up 3.
Okay.
Lower right.
And catty corner to building 2, the new one they're building now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name is Dan Davis, and I live at 3180 East, 400 South Lebanon. Been there for almost 40 years. And this warehouse is going on across the road from my house. There's 8 houses in our neighborhood. We all know each other. A lot of consideration has been given to Saratoga, and nothing's been given to us. We're still getting a 4-foot berm. That side of the warehouse is going to have, that faces us, is going to have a parking lot in it. Employee parking. We're going to have lights shining right in our house constantly, and the noise. And really, we're not asking for much. 4 feet of dirt on a 4-foot berm to make it 8 foot, or maybe even a 6-foot wooden fence on a 4-foot berm. Just anything that can be done to limit the lights and the noise from this warehouse. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Does the petitioner like to respond?
Thank you. I'll address a couple items here, and then Brian might add some color as well. As it relates to the first berm that was constructed as part of phase 1, just to remind everyone, the we recently purchased a property. Sunbeam Development purchased a property in January or February of this year. The previous owner, Van Trust, installed the grass on the phase 1 berm according to the approved plans by the town of Zionsville. We have been in active negotiations and discussions with the inspectors from the town of Zionsville regarding the condition of the berm and what improvements can be made, trying to understand, prairie grass versus slow growth, et cetera. But this is a berm that we inherited from the previous owners, and we have been in discussion with the inspectors from Zionsville regarding this. So we are working with Zionsville on this berm. In addition, as far as phase 2 and the berm for phase 2, we are committed to working with the town of Zionsville to make sure the appropriate grass, prairie grass or grass, slow grow, however Zionsville describes it, is planted on the berm that will be built adjacent to the Saratoga neighborhood. As far as truck parking and trailer parking adjacent to Saratoga, Sunbeam, we are following the commitments established for this development of phase 2, which included building a 12-foot berm as well as a 6-foot fence on top of that berm, along with an additional 4-foot landscape berm immediately east of the proposed trailer parking. And we have also updated our commitments related to that berm, that will be built at the beginning of our project to help shield the Saratoga neighborhood from the development that's going on the other side of the berm. As far as the berm along 400 South, again, I was not part of the conversations with Plan Commission when this initial development was brought forth by Van Trust. As we discussed in the last meeting in September, there were recorded commitments. The notes were reviewed from the Plan Commission back at the time that the concerned neighbors thought there were some discussions related to the 8-foot berm. It was confirmed in the notes of the meeting that there was no commitment to change the berm along 400 South to an 8-foot berm, that the commitments were for a 4-foot berm. And again, we are adhering to those commitments, the development commitments related to that side of the development. Brian wanted to add anything?
Yeah, Jamie, I was just going to add, speaking of the berm, similar, the berm along the west side of 300, similar, we're in substantial compliance with the site plan at the time of the rezone, which specifically called out a type of buffer. I believe it was a type H buffer along that edge, which carries a 4-foot berm. So we feel we're in substantial compliance with the rules that were set forth at the time of the rezone. Other than that one spot, because of the previous note of the Duke easement that comes through and the emergency access that the fire department had requested. So I just wanted to have that one note too.
Very quick.
Yeah. Your procedures. This is the development phase. So during the rezoning phase of the berm and stuff, that was a condition for building on that property and as changing it to an industrial site. They came in the board, and what you're agreeing to now is the actual plans that they're planning to build on that area. In phase 1, they don't have parking adjacent to the residential property. It's not there. Okay. And we know that it's a problem. And so what we're asking is that needs to be changed on the plan, which is well within your ability and your authority to do. 4 as well, because there's only one entrance and exit into that area. They can't go on 300. They can't go on 400. The berm size is not going to be sufficient based off of the construction plan that they are proposing now, which means that you're going to have light shining directly into those homes. So once again, you have the authority to say that it needs to be higher based on their plan of development. And that's what we're here today to talk about. And then the last piece of that, there was no commitment. That was no verbal commitment that was going on during the rezoning portion of it, which, by the way, was your first rezoning that you did over the internet. And individuals in this room in the community were not able to log into that meeting to ask some of those questions during that time. That is a fact that actually occurred during that rezoning period. As far as the grass, we want your commitment to meet the commitment letter, which is the no-grow grass. Just Google it. It shows you what residential no-grow grass looks like. It doesn't look like prairie grass, and it shouldn't be prairie grass. And what they approved or went through Zionsville was smaller trees than what they promised. And the only reason we're getting the right size trees is because we recorded it and because we made them say it in front of these hearings, in front of you guys and in front of the other board. That is the only reason that those trees were ripped out and replaced in phase 1, and that they are required to do them on phase 2, because they promised the exact same kind of building construction that they were going to have on that berm, which was part of that meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Staff.
Well, certainly Janice can give the staff report, but I do want to speak to some things that have been said, because we've talked about several different sets of commitments. So certainly this body recalls the 2018 rezoning of what was then JIG Hub 1. When you search your transcript of that meeting, there's no discussion of grasses. There's no discussion of certain, as Mr. Triscari points out, there's no discussion of the tree size necessarily. Those conversations either happened at the town council or happened outside of this room. And you may remember this from last month, we talked about this very singular fact that private agreements or agreements that are not made in this room are very difficult to enforce. And so just framing the singular concept and talking point of the slow grow, no grow grass, that was not even a topic that staff can tell at the time of the plan commission's conversations with this initial reason. At some point in time, there was a drawing put together, which was presented to the town council, that uses that term. That term is entered into the commitments. That terminology, when you look at no grow grass, like it's been indicated, you definitely can Google it, and it's something that's mowed twice a year, for at least this particular website, prairienursery.com, no mow lawn. Just looking at that data. So there's definitely, as indicated, there's plenty of data out there that we can use as tools to discuss and to articulate what different words mean. And so certainly it's very beneficial to have these conversations in this room, like right now, to get these terms defined and establish a level understanding of what is expected by the community, certainly what the definition of a term is and how that can be executed. And certainly staff is very appreciative of discussion this evening about the commitment in favor of a resident here, which is wonderful. Certainly Mr. Andreoli is assisting with that. Certainly, and I can't necessarily say that that's going to go smoothly to execute that commitment in the form of a town form. At a minimum, it sounded like that commitment was being exchanged for no remonstrance. So I would personally be uncomfortable for the Plan Commission to agree to not allow a resident to remonstrate in exchange for a commitment. That not certain how that would work for you. And then certainly the timing, we've run into this time and time again with commitments that are not time sensitive and or conflict with the occupancy permit. And so certainly how the individual planting on a piece of property may or may not conflict with occupancy of a building. So there's several different things to consider when you're discussing these commitments that are being discussed this evening. That's the information I would provide at the onset here, but certainly would turn to Janice to provide the staff report related to the matter at hand.
Staff is in support of the commitment amendment to allow for compliance to the restrictions of the Duke utility easement, commitment number 9, and the request to comply with the fire department's request for emergency access off of 300 East, commitment number 12, We're also supportive of commitments, proposed commitments 13, 14, 15, and 16. Look forward to working with the petitioner and council through any additional commitments that might be agreed to tonight. And again, staff would be working with the petitioner and council to work through those commitments to ensure that they are compliant to what's being conveyed tonight.
Thank you. Any members of the planning commission?
Certainly, I'm not in favor of moving this forward unless there are additional commitments. I don't care whether you bought the property now, you had the property before, you talked to residents about somebody talked to residents about what they would get. They then supported the project because they thought they were going to get that, and regardless of how many times it changes hands. I feel like they're owed that privacy from this facility, because I do think this facility, unfortunately, is kind of going to be a nuisance for them from the light standpoint and the sound standpoint. So one commitment that I think needs to be added that was brought up last time and needs to be memorialized as such is no construction traffic will utilize County Roads 300 East and County Roads 400 South. So that was one that I think was agreeable. I would want to see a commitment that the berm just south of County Road 400 South be increased to 8 foot with evergreen trees planted regularly along the top. Trees shall be 6 foot tall at installation. I would want to see a commitment similar in nature, 8 foot berm, evergreen trees on top, 6 foot tall, along County Road 300 East for the length of the property at, is it 4490? South 300 East. And then another commitment that would then memorialize your agreement with Mr. Tiscari. So those are things that from my standpoint, if those commitments can be added, I'm certainly in favor of it. I can't speak for my other plan commission members, but we do need to consider the residents that live adjacent to this and make sure that this doesn't affect their quality of life. And right now this project will affect their quality of life. And so we need to do whatever we can do to make sure that we speak up for those residents.
I was going to ask the same question or make the same statement. If these are all hooked together, and how do we go back and do that? Or do we add it to what we're doing now? Like
Yes,
Mr. Lake said.
I think if we as a body would agree to these commitments, then we would just, as part of our motion, add these commitments as such and state that then the petitioner submit those to our attorney for final review and approval. And that's how we would make that happen. But I'm only speaking for myself. So if this is something you guys want, you have to speak up and let me know.
I think I would agree that a larger berm on the north side of this project, as well as being on the southwest portion of the project, would make sense. Some sort of additional buffering will help it anyway.
Larry, comments?
I agree.
Cindy, any comments from you?
I agree completely that all the residents from all sides need a fair shot at having their value of their homes protected. So that would be the only way I would agree with this going forward.
Okay. Sure.
So I don't speak, the gentleman may want to speak in addition to me, but I think in the purchasing of the property, there was a site plan with this petition as well, very clearly listed the berming required and the buildings that were proposed. We're actually proposing less square footage of building than at the time that those requirements were placed. You can go back and look. We also showed, or we didn't, but Van Trust and Structure Point, previous engineer, had shown trailer parking along the east side of the building, which is also what we're doing. We feel, if anything, our proposed development is less intensive than what was approved by the town council and this plan commission. So I just wanted to clarify, I guess, that for the record, that they purchased the property with the understanding what the zoning was and have 100% complied with the site plan as presented at that time. So Just wanted to state that for the record.
The issue isn't the buildings that make the noise. It's the trucks.
The buildings don't have the light, I mean, the majority of the lighting issues as well are going to be from the trucks, not the buildings themselves. Is anyone ready to make a motion on?
Sure.
On this one?
I move the docket 2021-47-CA requesting modification of commitments recorded in the office of the Recorder of Boone County, Indiana as instrument number 2020-013512 to allow for a modification of commit number 9 buffer yard requirement and commitment number 12 vehicular access with the inclusion of commitments 13, 14, 15, and 16 as reflected in Exhibit 4 in the staff memorandum in the I-1 Rural Industrial Zoning District, receive a favorable recommendation pending the addition of commitment 17. No construction traffic will utilize County Road 300 East and County Road 400 South. Commitment 18, the berm just south of County Road 400 South shall be increased to 8 foot with evergreen trees planted regularly along the top. Trees shall be 6 foot tall at installation. Commitment 19, the berm along County Road 300 East for the length of residential property 4490 South 300 East be installed at 8 foot tall with evergreen trees planted regularly along the top. Trees shall be 6 foot tall at installation. And commitment 20, that the memorandum of understanding between Mr. Tiscari and the petitioner be formalized as a commitment, and that these be submitted and reviewed by our attorney for final approval.
Did we get the grass issue dealt with?
It says no grow, so I'm not going to bother with that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice?
Can I ask a clarification question
Absolutely.
related to the
Yeah.
commitment? On the 4-foot berm on 400 and 300, you're asking that to increase to 8 feet. Can we do the 4-foot berm similar to what we did on the 12-foot berm and add the six-foot fence on top of the existing 4-foot berm? Which is similar to what we did on.
I guess I would
on
ask the
target.
residents that are here if that's acceptable.
That fence will fall under your numbers, you need to put trees. That fence will go over the wind comes.
We'll keep the 8 foot berm.
Part of the curve fence behind the Saratoga before. There's a. We're out.
We're not-
We're out of the public comment portion of this. I'm sorry.
The fence was a contract, there's a commitment to keep maintaining to that fence. So if you're worried that it's going to fall down, we're required to. That's their reason.
Right.
Thank you. That's their reason. No, that's correct.
There's already trees.
Folks, guys, stop.
We're voting.
I have a motion and I need Janice to take a vote on, please.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're moving on to 2021-42-PP, Sunbeam Development. Can we do all three of these things? No. We can do it quickly. We'll do them quickly. Sunbeam Development Corporation, Hub Phase 2, 4155 South, 300 East, and 4255 South, 300 East. Petition for primary plat approval to establish 2 lots in the rural I-1 Industrial Zoning District. Is the petitioner present?
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Again, Brian Sheward with Kimley Horn and Associates. I don't think I have anything else to add to this. I think we just discussed it. It's two existing parcels. We're proposing two lots, just reconfigured. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Members of the public? Staff report?
You'll want the primary plat and both development plans together then?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Very good. Primary plat and both development plans have been reviewed using the standards of the zoning ordinance and subdivision control ordinance and found to be compliant with a few minor comments within the engineering letter. Staff is confident that the petitioner will continue to work toward full resolution of the staff comments and is in support of all three petitions.
Thank you. These are members of the commission. And all right, is there a motion?
I move that docket 2021-42-PP petition for primary plat approval to provide to establish two lots in the rural I-1 industrial zoning district be approved.
Second.
And Janice, will you take roll?
Ms. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on, 2021-43-DP, Sunbeam Development Corporation, Hub Phase 2, Building 3, 4155 South, 300 East, and 4255 South, 300 East. Petition for development plan approval to allow for the construction of a 385,560 plus or minus square foot industrial warehouse and distribution building in the rural I-1 light industrial zoning district. Petitioner present.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Brian Stewart with Kimley Horn Associates. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Questions are members of the public? Got your staff report. We're on to a motion.
I move that docket 2021-43-DP development plan petition to allow for construction of a 385,560 plus or minus square foot industrial warehousing and distribution building in the rural I-1 light industrial or industry zoning district be approved as presented with the conditions as noted in the staff report and based on the findings of fact.
Second.
Janice, would you take a roll, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Moving on, our motion passes. Moving on to 2021-44-DP, Sunbeam Development Corporation Hub Phase 2, Building 4, 4155 South, 300 East, 4255 South, and 300 East. Petition for development plan approval to allow for the construction of a 702,000 plus or minus square foot industrial warehouse and distribution building in the rural I-1 light industrial zoning district. Is petitioner present?
Brian Stewart with Kimley Horn Associates. Be happy to answer any questions if you have it. Thank you.
Any members of the public? And staff report we have gotten. Is there a motion?
I move that docket number 2021-44-DP development plan petition to allow for construction of a 702,000 plus or minus square foot industrial warehousing and distribution building in the rural I-1 light industry zoning district be approved as presented with the conditions as noted in the staff report and based on the findings of fact.
Second.
Second. Janice, would you take roll, please?
Ms. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes. 2021-46-RP, FBO Services, Inc., 10825 Andrew Drive, petition for replat approval to subdivide lot number 10 in the Andrew Industrial Park in the urban I-2 general industrial zoning district. Is a petitioner present?
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Mike Andrioli, 1393 West Oak Street. This is a simple replat of lot number 10 in the Andrade Industrial Park, essentially. Several years ago, FBO Services built with approval by the town an office building encompassing lot number 10 and some collateral meets and bounds acreage that they had out there in the Andrade Industrial Park. Mr. Guiducci from FBO Services was approached because a new business in town wanted to find a facility that would be suitable for their new location. Talked to him about purchasing the building, which he consented to do, but he needs a new address. And the address that's been out there is for the remainder of the ground that has been used by Jetstar and FBO Services for years and years and years. The new owner wanted a new address, and appropriately so, in discussions with Janice and staff, they were going to have a separate lot in order to pull a new address. So what this would accomplish is creation of lot 11 for the property that they've actually purchased. That will be the building and their parking out there. They have an entrance by way of easement that's been furnished to the town to be able to get to it off the main road leading back to that particular area across from Snyder in the very back of Andrade Industrial Park. So it's no more elaborate than that. We had a request of continuance from last meeting because subsequent to the actual filing of our petition to replat, a closing took place, and Cox Holdings now owns the building and that particular ground. So we added them to the plat approval request. They will be shown as an owner of the plat. And at time of closing, there was an error in the actual legal description of the ground that they purchased. So we had to correct that. We had to have them quick claim some deed back to FBO. All an internal issue, nothing doing with staff or anything else. It's just an error that occurred at closing that we had to correct before we could actually come in before you and have a replat for what they are actually now owning. And that will be lot number 11. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions.
See, members of the public. Seeing none. Janice, staff report. Roger, staff report.
Yes,
Yes,
good
really
evening.
messes me tonight.
Mr. Andy Rowley did a nice summary of the proposal. I'm a graphic person, so if I could direct your attention to Exhibit 2 in the staff report, it paints the picture where current boundary of lot number 10 is shown, and we're truly just splitting that, creating a new lot 11 and the new configuration of lot number 10. Staff is in support of the proposed subdivision. It is in compliance with subdivision control ordinance and the zoning ordinance. Staff has no other comments at this time. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Members of the commission, any questions?
So quick question. So the previous two lots were then combined into a single lot that was lot 10, and now we're splitting off lot 11 on the north side of that?
Yes, the previous configuration was entirely owned originally by FBO. And they are looking to sell off the building on the northern half of that configuration. So they're essentially inserting an east-west dividing line to create lot number 11 on the north, lot number 10 on the south. Lot number 11 would contain the building that is being transferred by ownership to Cox Real Estate.
This is an interesting question. So the property to the south of lot 10, there's access to that to Andre Drive. Everybody access up through between lots 10 and 11 now?
I would have to pull up the aerial photo to double check that. But
And the
again,
other question I've got with new lot 11, are they going to have a setback requirement to the property line?
No, they meet the requirements. The the new lot 11 and the building that is existing on it will still meet the required setbacks of the new lot 11.
Mr. Jones, to help you out a little bit with regard to that, as we went through the process, we were required to get an owner's authorization from Cox and add them to the particular plat because they had closed before the board actually had approved the plat itself. So in terms of the plat filing and requirements, it'll be signed by FBO Services, which will own the remainder that is not being included in lot number 11 and also by Cox. So they will both be signatories, and Cox, instead of having a meets and bounds, will now own lot number 11 in the as designated. And part of the confusion, I might add, is that in addition to lot number 10, there was some collateral acreage that had been acquired that wasn't part of the original plot that actually FBO Services owned. So then the original legal description that was presented when they had the building, they showed all of lot number 10 plus some extra acreage. And so we had to sort through all of that to make sure that what was being purchased was squarely within lot number 11, and what was left over was the balance of lot number 10 and additional acreage.
Lot number 10 actually owns that parcel to the east of whatever the building that faces Andre. So that's all one single owner?
Yes, and regarding vehicular access, there is vehicular access off of Andre Drive on the south side of the building, which is south of lot 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too many cells?
It's
I feel like some of those orange lot lines aren't right.
it's I'd like to see the drainage study for this development.
Oh, please, let's not go into that. That's a fair comment. When this plat was done so many years ago, it probably would have been done a lot different a number of years ago, the old Andrade Industrial Park, than what your requirements are now. So we're just trying to make the best of a very unusual legal description out there in order for the new owner to be able to go in and Janice can give them a new address for that lot number 11 and that building that currently has the address that FBO wants to keep.
Do we need a motion or is there more talk?
I'm ready for a motion, whatever.
I move the docket number 2021-46-RP, a replat to allow for the subdivision of lot number 10, creating lot number 11 in the Andre Industrial Park and being within the urban I2 General Industrial Zoning District be approved as presented with the conditions as noted in the town engineer's letter, Exhibit 5, and based upon the findings of fact.
Second.
Janice, would you take roll, please?
Yes. Mrs. Grabanowski?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Aye.
Mr. Fedor?
Aye.
Ms. Madrick?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. On to new business.
I have to recuse myself, so somebody come grab me.
2021-54-CPA Town of Zionsville Gateway Study. Petition to consider the incorporation of the Gateway Study as an amendment to the Town of Zionsville Comprehensive Plan. I'm looking at the time frame we're working off of right now, and what we still have left to go through. So this may get continued to our November 16th or.
Wait, yeah, you can certainly start the hearing process tonight, see what testimony is offered, so what petitioner is offered this evening. And certainly if the timing gets tight, you can either keep going past 10 o'clock with a vote to touch on your remaining items.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly up to the pleasure of the planning commission.
Ready? Does everyone agree? We'll just go ahead and open it up, and we may have to continue it to the 16th meeting. So, is the petitioner present, ready to present?
Yes, thank you. While I'm logging in, good evening. My name is Kara Weber. I am an architect and partner at Delve Design, part of the consultant team. I've got a few of my other partners here to speak to you about the Zionsville Gateway area. So I will. Yep, this happened last time. So Joe's going to bring up our presentation. Luckily, we had a backup. So good evening again. As that is being brought up, the Zionsville Gateway area, I want to offer an update and a quick overview tonight. Happy to answer any questions as this is wanting to be explored for, there we go, thank you, for an amendment to the comprehensive plan. As an overview, if we go to the next slide, we've been going through this process for about the last 14 months with the town. There's been wonderful participation, incredible insights, and we can keep going through these incredible insights and participation from lots of different areas and of town members, developers, et cetera, as we keep going. This is an example of some of the listening sessions. We had public listening sessions, 2 separate ones, as well as online. This was, of course, during the height of COVID when many people were not comfortable coming in person. Tried to make it very inclusive. Online listening sessions, stakeholder interviews, draft study listening session previews, and then finally a website was launched this past August to document the draft study findings. If we continue there. As we're familiar with what is the Zionsville Gateway area, it is this area as demonstrated below, the rough boundaries that are the intersections of South Main Street and Sycamore that are currently relatively undeveloped and a real entrance into the Village Business District. The goals of it were to be economically vibrant, whole community serving, and an authentically Zionsville experience. So whatever came out of this, any recommendation or suggestion needed to serve these. The big picture of what we were trying to achieve with this process was to flip the script. Instead of developers coming and saying, here's an option, Zionsville, do you approve? Community, do you approve? To flip that script, say, community, what do you want? Town, what do you want? Understand what that is, step number 1. And then number 2, is there a feasible path to provide it for the town? Something that the numbers actually work out. So that is what the Zionsville Gateway Area Study does. We continue on. This is the development suggestion. Again, there's many details in the packet and on the website, zionsvillegatewayarea.com, that you can dig into this, but wanted to have a reference on the screen. We can move forward one more time. The website, again, zionsvillegatewayarea.com. There's a lot of information on there. And continuing forward, we can answer any questions about any of the tabulations or the math that got us to where we are today. In the development suggestion, we have summaries of what the community wants, what we heard, and then in the next slide, we also have summaries of how we distilled those into design tenets. So whatever development should happen in this area needs to fulfill these design tenets. And then what are the next steps? We are here tonight to present this overview. You have the full study, I believe, in your packet. Again, there's a lot of information in there. So we are happy to answer any questions at this time or hear from the public.
Thank you. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this petition? Come on up and state your name.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Glenn Hoagie. I reside at 11724 Promontory Trail here in Zionsville. excuse me. Through a limited liability company, I have control of the largest land area within the Gateway area, which is Barbara Hanson's property currently. It's about 4 acres of the 10 acres within the Gateway area. I've been involved in the process somewhat, having attended some of the open sessions and just corresponding with the consultants. I'm generally in support of what the consultant has put together. The property that I have under control is area B and C. If you're looking at the development recommendations. This is also the property that was Sycamore Flats, which we brought to the Plan Commission and the council in 2019, I believe. So the process has been a long one. We think it's time is of the essence. It's time to move on and get these sites developed. The areas, and I sent some correspondence to the Plan Commission and the Town Council and the town dated September 10th, which really outlined all of my key points with respect to the site constraints, density needed, parking, greenbelt, DNR permit that I still have in place for a couple of years that the town should take advantage of. So just to note, the southwest corner of the Gateway area currently generates about $30,000 of tax revenue in total, some of which the town gets, a lot of which the town doesn't get, the schools and the county get. I think the development plan that the consultant put together would drive over $500,000, maybe $1 million of revenue in that location. So it's a huge opportunity for the town to activate these sites. And it really needs to happen, like I said, quickly, to take advantage of the permit and take advantage of the economic conditions that we have. Some specific things I'd like to point out is I fear that amending the comp plan with the current design might lead to a lot of confusion. I would recommend that the town continue to hear petitions while they amend the comp plan, because the creativity is going to come from developers. And I think they can do that in the spirit of this study. So I'm hopeful that amending the comp plan won't slow the process. There's tremendous interest in these sites, but no one is approaching or trying to develop them or filing a petition because of the cost associated with that and not knowing what Zionsville is going to do. Sycamore Flats was multifamily for rent. I think there still needs to be a complement of multifamily for rent in the town. We need that housing option for young professionals. In speaking to employers, merchants, and others during the Sycamore Flats process, housing was mentioned as a component that causes them not to be able to recruit workers and young professionals in particular. In addition, multifamily for rent provides 2% tax revenue versus single family or townhomes or condominiums that are owner occupied 1% tax revenue. So in summary, the town should adopt the study, modify the TIF that's about to expire, and support any development petition that's in the spirit of this study. The town should announce and acquire the right-of-way for First Street. That was I think one of the most important points made by the exercises is the traffic. And in addition, acquiring the right-of-way and extending First Street eliminates so many unknowns for developers. Until that's done, they're afraid to touch it. So that needs to be done quickly. And I've already said, while amending the comp plan, the town should allow petitions to be heard, leverage the creativity of the development community. Time is of the essence. We have the permit, but it has an expiration date in a couple of years, and that comes around quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sally Zalonis, 40 South 3rd Street here in Zionsville in the village, obviously by the address. A resident for over 24 years now, and have been proud to be part of the exercises that the consultants have been working on. A couple of questions though, because it's not clear to me, and I'm sure it's not clear to other residents in the village anyway, what the time frame is. And in fact, a question I have is, in effect, what does it mean when you amend the comprehensive plan? Because some of what I see in the study isn't enforceable, if you will. It seems to me there are guidelines, but what does it mean when you amend the comprehensive plan? And the other part of that, as Mr. Hokie spoke, was has the town in effect stopped allowing petitions on this property? Is that the case now? I don't know that. So I'm asking the question. He made it sound like the town wasn't entertaining petitions on those properties any longer. And I don't know the answer to that question. And then my other piece, which would be addressed, I think, to Kara, is that I would hope that the Village Residents Association might have more in-depth conversation with the consultants to talk about how they see this coming about and how it's going to directly affect residents in the village. As I've looked at it and looked at the traffic patterns, which of course is one of the biggest concerns that people have had regarding that section of town, I'm confused, and I'm sure that others will be too. And I would hope, even though we had, good representation at earlier meetings, now that it's coming to this, and it seems to me moving quickly to amend the comprehensive plan by attaching this to it, that there might be some type of more public meeting that could address issues that people have. And I think that by having the consultants meet directly with the Village Residents Association, that might address a good part of it for sure. But we're not the only ones in the town of Zionsville. There are 27,000 people here. So I would hope that there's perhaps more public input. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Excuse me, Mike Reinbold, 2982 Stone Creek Drive. I echo the comments of the earlier speakers, and I'm really surprised that there's not more public here this evening in front of you. My only specific question would be regarding the plan, if I could get a little stronger explanation of the traffic flow. Not having seen that before, so maybe that could be knocked out tonight. That'd be great. Thank you.
Would the petitioner like to respond? briefly on some of these? We're going to continue this to next month.
Yes, I'll be efficient. Thank you for those who have stayed here tonight to ask great questions and great input. Next steps and timing, absolutely. I think we're all really eager to move this forward in a timely way to help take advantage of the permits that are in place and the advantage of now and the prices of construction. VRA involvement. So this effort, I would say, or I should just invite kind of the comment about additional public involvement. This effort is for the town to help have a tool in its hands to inform decisions moving forward. So absolutely, these are mostly privately held land. So the developers and the deals that happen there, that the structure of those deals will be and the involvement of the residents there will be in a different level, in a different category. We didn't do any design, only development suggestion and strong design tenets that we would hope that then the developers would adhere to, which is how this could serve well as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Again, a tool to help supplement what it is that the town wants to see going forward as this team has heard it. Traffic study. I can't remember what the question came from. Excellent question. And that was a super hot button issue. We think there are several iterations in the study itself. The one that became the #1 suggestion is one stoplight. That was a strong design tenet for that, to simplify the traffic patterns, allow for safe pedestrian crossing, and really reorient the first street as the main thoroughfare through that area. So at a very high level, that's a comment on the traffic pattern, but there's traffic study would be a next step to confirm queuing and all sorts of other information, widths of lanes, et cetera.
Certainly, Mr. President, staff's happy to provide some additional comment for you when you're ready for that.
I'm ready for you now.
I figured you were leaning towards that, so I thought I'd give you a little extra guidance. So certainly, in speaking to the question regarding the comp plan process, this is a part of that process. This is the first step of the comp plan amendment, to have the public hearing as noticed, as the public signage was placed on actually the PNC property to further convey to the public that an action item is happening. Please get involved. Certainly, as your staff memo indicates, there's been 9 or so different specific events, including at the county fairgrounds here at this town hall online, to interface and seek out comment as gathered by our consulting team. But yes, as referenced tonight, is the first step of that comprehensive plan amendment process. And comprehensive plans are a policy document. So that's a very good comment, that the comprehensive, this document here is a representation of thought, of guidance, of policy. And certainly other tools would be put in place, assuming this document is adopted and by the town council and recorded at the recorder's office, is that zoning ordinance amendments would happen. Other property conversations would start occurring. The town only owns the PNC site and some minor acreage through that area. Our main control point is the right of way and the infrastructure. And that's where the town would look to lean into that conversation. Certainly if the town council, if this vote happens this evening, the matter goes forward to the town council as certified with a recommendation. That recommendation then discussed by the town council staff. If there's positive action by the town council, would move fairly rapidly to begin furthering their conversations with our zoning consultant that has been working, who's met with many folks that are in this room regarding zoning ordinance updates. Certainly will this project, if it's a comp plan amendment, happen in a different timeline? Possibly. Has the town stopped accepting the filings? No. The town has no authority except by another ordinance to deny or restrict or somehow reduce the amount of filings that can be made. So certainly parties are welcome to file at any time if they're seeking a particular project. And certainly, as the consultant indicated, the infrastructure study, the traffic study would be that next step, assuming the adoption of this comprehensive plan. Certainly, as seen in your comments, you've received copies of comments that were sent in ahead of time. I do want to note that Other comments came in to other elected officials and appointed officials. And so we tried to gather those up as well, just to give you a strong a voice and collection as possible of items, even if they didn't come to the Plan Commission directly, of comments that were coming in. As you know, you had comments specifically coming in asking about why are there not more roundabouts in this plan. Certainly downtowns are not necessarily, except for downtown Indianapolis and other downtowns like that, where you have a major roundabout. Certainly roundabouts may not be the best solution for commerce, serving the public, and so on and so forth. But those little items can certainly be studied as part of our future conversations with a traffic study. So just giving summarizing things for you. Certainly staff is of course supportive of our own efforts, certainly very supportive in trying to gather up all the comments that we've given to you that we could find over across the board in favor, with concerns and in opposition, having questions about what the project entails. But with that in mind, staff is certainly supportive and certainly encourages, if your offices choose to come to a vote tonight and forwarding this topic for recommendation to the town council to be placed on its first available agenda.
Thank you, Lynn.
Certainly.
Is there any members of the planning commission have any questions, comments?
Sure. Got a stack. Obviously, I was a big supporter of the Sycamore Flats project back when that was first presented, and was kind of a little bit flummoxed, I guess, is how it processed through. And that typically, if we're going to attract projects of the scale, there needs to be a more unified and committed leadership behind it. My personal statement is that, you know, if the mayor and the town council had not given the Sycamore Flats group some sort of direction, it wouldn't have gotten as far as it did. And then for it to show up at the end with, 3,000 remonstrators against it or whatever, seemed a little interesting. And it's even more interesting that we ain't got nobody in the room tonight, and we're here talking about the entire project again. So I'm like, so when I start harping on the mayor and the town council as to what really is going to happen, my first concern is looking at this revision of Main Street over to First. That is a huge commitment, money-wise, political collateral. I mean, as I participated in some of the early meetings and saw some of the ideas floating around, this is kind of a later development suggestion. And actually it makes the most sense. It gets rid of that intersection of Main Street and Sycamore. It does not close Main Street in front of the businesses. It would probably help clear up a lot of stuff, but it's not a cheap option. And it's going to have to be an option that the town is going to have to take the lead on and fund. The problem with that is, as Mr. Hokie has expressed, he's got a deal in hand with the property, and he's got money invested in working with getting the commitments out of not IDEM, but who am I thinking of? Yeah, DNR. And so, there's no way the town is going to get behind getting this street change made. The final piece, and the most concerning to me, is I'm trying to do kind of unit counts and what we're talking about. And one of the pieces that keeps cropping up as I read through the various exhibits under I think it's the economic and financial impact, where they sort of go area by area. If I'm reading this correctly, there's just absolutely no consideration given for any additional parking. I'm assuming what they want to do with parcel B, the residential, will have parking because they're trying to make some sort of single family housing there. But as far as, if I'm reading this correctly, A, C, D, E, and F, all of them have a note about their structured parking not factored into construction cost. That's a minimum $30,000 per parking space. And you need, when you look at the number of residents being added, that's just a huge myth. I don't quite grasp if we're putting out this as part of the comprehensive plan that we're not really addressing all the issues. And that would be the first and the biggest question I've had is, so my three questions roll around, is the town really committed to the biggest piece of this, which is the rerouting of Main and acquiring of the, property to do so? Two, when this report comes out, I'm just kind of a little flummoxed as to where what the plan is for parking. Those are the biggies. And then three is just, like I said, the hard issue that some current individuals have with the timing of something like this and how it impacts them.
I think we all have concerns about parking. This is all really, really interesting in the different scenarios. But I'm like you, Larry. I didn't see a whole lot of stuff on parking. There's some drawings that show where parking could be, but
I guess I'll echo everyone's sentiment that I'm disappointed not to see some sort of additional something for parking. Because I was involved in one of these meetings and remember stressing then that parking was the largest concern I had, or thought we could maybe find some sort of solution here. I just don't see it in this study at this time. So. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Parking is a giant concern in the ZGA as well as the remainder of the village, as we're all familiar. Mr. Jones, your comment about the comment is that structured parking was not included in the construction cost tabulation. It doesn't mean that structured parking will not be part of the design solution, just that it was not part of the construction cost calculation. Because to the form-based code and kind of all of that concurrent effort that's going on, the type of parking solution is yet to be determined. I think that will help be informed by some of that effort concurrently. The intention is that these will have adequate parking for the residents, for the businesses. However, I will say that the larger, there's kind of two issues that have come up in relation to this. One is the need for parking to help support the remainder of the village, be it a parking structure or something to support the remainder of it. That was not found to be appropriate within the Zionsville Gateway area as a recommendation of a development suggestion due to its distance and the crossing of the main streets into that main area. So that has been a question that has come up from time to time. I just wanted to offer clarity on that.
I guess, and maybe just help me with this, like, when I look at some of the parcel and some of the notes, it'll talk about a 3-story building, a gross amount of square footage, and then that's broken up between the commercial and the residential, with the residentials having an average square footage of 1,100 square feet, and then a certain amount of commercial. The numbers add up, but once again, the square footage for the parking isn't. My concern is a 3-story building on a parcel could have 81,000 gross square feet in it, divided up between the commercial and the residential, but it still doesn't have any square footage for the parking. So that's what, and maybe I'm just not understanding what I'm looking at. But my concern is it almost makes it sound like, well, every single building in here really needs to have another story. So it's 4-story building with 3 floors of commercial and residential and a floor of parking.
And are you referencing parcel D when you reference that 81,000?
It seemed to be, that's just a general note, D, E, F, A, all of them seem to kind of float along in that same terms. And I guess our concern is, since we're building in a flood fringe, we don't really want to go down. We're kind of limited because you don't really want to put underground parking in a flood. So.
As I'll say a quick comment. Number one, absolutely, that the parking as it will be designed is going to be a really critical path step in the design and development of these, you know, to Mr. Hoagie's comment earlier, getting developers in on this, you know, using their creativity early on will be important. There's some grade change before you hit the floodplain in B, C, and D that may allow you to keep sort of a smaller building profile and allow it before you even hit that zone where you cannot build parking to still take advantage of maybe one level of parking. So that is a design opportunity that needs to be explored.
And certainly, Mr. Jones, to your point, and as we talked earlier, or talked about in this room earlier, that the town's primary focus with this project and its own responsibility is infrastructure. And certainly part of that infrastructure conversation is parking. Certainly no project can be successful without having some sort of parking solution. And certainly the town recognizes that. And certainly, as mentioned, it wasn't thought to be appropriate to designate a particular parcel within the ZGA area, a privately owned piece of property, to be that where the solution would be located. That solution will be looks somewhere in the downtown area, somewhere in proximity to the ZGA. It's necessary to provide some sort of parking solution. What that looks like in terms of a deck, a structure, a parking lot, I'm not here to say that answer. I don't know that answer, but certainly the town council will work through this with the mayor and certainly the redevelopment commission in terms of bonding conversations. And the goal is to have the town move forward that conversation with infrastructure and parking to set the table for future investment by developers so they can see that infrastructure taking shape, feel that responsibility is being somewhat carried by the town. Hence why this conversation is occurring in terms of the land use conversations, and certainly defaulting to when this project was presented October 4th to the town council, that while the parking topic wasn't necessarily talked about, there was recognition of the streetscape movement to First Street, looking, and Councilor Trailer pointed out, as you pointed out, might be the most reasonable solution through that area. It is going to be expensive. Certainly the town is looking at multiple different opportunities for funding. And as also mentioned in email communication and to others, as certainly as the team knows, and it's on the website, the project's website, we submitted this as part of the IEDC's READY grant. So we're looking for multiple funding opportunities to assist with the infrastructure.
I think with Dave not being here tonight and being a comp plan change, I would like to have his input on this as well. We do have a meeting set for the 16th and only one thing on that docket right now. I know time is of the essence with this project, but I would kind of want to move this to the 16th of November meeting if somebody would like to make a motion.
I move we continue this until the 16th.
I'll second.
Janice, can we get a roll call again, please?
Mrs. Gravenowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake, whoops, excuse me. Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick. Ms. Madrick.
Whoop, sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Motion carries. On to our last docket of the night, 2021-51-CA Zionsville Development LLC. Various lots within Pemberton, Section 1 and 2, petition for amendments to modify commitments associated with and recorded in the office of the recorder of the Boone County, Indiana as instrument number 2015-010007024 to allow for the inclusion of an option to build a single-family residency on a crawl space in the urban RSF2 residential zoning district. Is petitioner present?
I am. Thank you and good evening, Plan Commission members. We're getting very close to the cutoff time. I think I'll be able to meet that because I don't believe there's any remonstrance here tonight. This is, my client is developing Pemberton. which is a custom home community. They discovered, I think, through the permitting department that probably didn't realize that crawl spaces were not permitted. This was part of the Hampshire zoning from years ago. And I know there was a lot of negotiation. At the end of the day, the same foundation commitments were put into all of the sections, including Pemberton. And that commitment currently says that you can only build foundations on slab, partial basement or full basement. No full crawl space foundation shall be permitted. So we're just seeking to tweak that to allow for crawl spaces going forward. Crawl spaces we're not changing the lot count, any of the architectural standards. It's a closed community. There's 5 custom builders. We're not changing any of that. This is merely to allow some flexibility. Crawl spaces will not diminish the values of the home. So that's it. We're grateful to have staff support, and we hope that we have your support as well.
Thank you very much. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this docket? None. Staff.
With the knowledge that allowance of a construction of a single-family home built on a crawl space will not devalue the home or the homes of its adjoiners, staff is supportive of this petition.
And Janice, comments from the Planning Commission? Saying that, I'll look for a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-51-CA requesting modification of commitments recorded in the Office of the Recorder of Boone County, Indiana as instrument number 20150007024. Where's the 007? To allow for the inclusion and option to build single-family residences on a crawl space in the urban R-SF-2 residential zoning district, receive a favorable recommendation as presented, with the recommendation being certified to the town council for adoption or rejection.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, roll call, please.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Ms. Madrick.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're on to other matters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other things to be considered. Sign placement update. Is that Wayne or Janice or
That would be
Roger?
me, very,
All
very,
right.
very quickly. You had in your packet another affidavit. You've seen this before. Simply put it in your packet to draw attention to the fact that rather than have 2 separate affidavits, one being for first class mail, one being for certified, we've combined that into one form. Further, you'll recall that we had discussion recently about sign placement, that being the responsibility of the petitioner. We need to update our rules of procedure to include that. So in your packet, you will have the rules of procedure. On page 9, item 3, you'll see that sign verbiage. We also needed to include and update the rules of procedure to include your electronic meeting policy. That's on page 2. Item 6, addendum A is also attached to that. That will be updated as soon as I can have all membership sign off. So just be aware of that. That is why that is there. I will have the form for execution that I'll send around after the meeting is over. And on to the 2022 deadlines and dates. We did have a revision that we needed to make. That's why you received that in hard copy tonight. I'll ask Roger to go ahead and address that.
Oh, thank you. The schedule that's being presented to you is very similar to the one that was approved last year. The change in the hard copy that was waiting for you when you arrived this evening compared to the one that was on the packets is that earlier today, the town council approved the calendar of 2022 holidays. And we learned that that Monday, June 20th is going to be acknowledged as Juneteenth Day, where the city offices or town offices will be closed. So therefore, we can't have a public hearing that evening. So the updated schedule shows the Plan Commission meeting on Tuesday, June 21st. The only difference in comparing this schedule to last year's schedule, the biggest item is that we are going to be putting a greater emphasis on pre-filing meetings with petitioners. There have been times throughout this past year when staff has been pinched with time and we've been receiving filings very, very late. Revisions to filings very late in the process. And our hope is that if we put a greater emphasis on these pre-filing meetings, that the packages will be coming in a more complete position than what they have this past year.
Gotcha. Is there anything else? Nothing else? I move we adjourn. I'm gonna make a motion. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. And I got a second. Second. All right.
Is it under 10
Go,
o'clock?
go. It's after my bedtime.
Or-
We're under 10.
9:55.
I told you guys I'd have you done my 10.
I didn't think you could get it done, John.
You really didn't. I won't lie. I was in my watch.